of the Georgia Bulldogs finally, after 2 consecutive national championships, being invited to the White House. Joe Biden had to be shamed. I almost hoped that I knew he wouldn't do this because he wouldn't do this to the players, because regardless of who the president of the United States is, I've said this, this is a Good Friday subject. If we didn't have so much else going on, I could do this for the next 3 hours. If you were invited to the White House and the president of the United States was of a political leaning not of your choosing, say it was Barack Obama. Let's get Joe Biden out of the mix, because Joe Biden doesn't know what day it is or whether he's made poopy. So it's Barack Obama and you get invited to the White House. Would you go? I've had the honor of, well, not the honor. I mean, I say it like you can't do it too. I did it just like anybody else. I contacted my representative and got a tour of the White House, and I've done that twice. And the White House is a pretty cool place. I mean, I love it. I'm on record as I love Washington, D.C. is one of my favorite towns in the world. I am simultaneously fascinated with D.C., and every time I'm in Washington, D.C., I want to vomit because it's so disgusting. That's what's fascinating to me. It is full of 3 of my favorite things in life: history, monuments, and a-holes in wild abundance. And the White House has mostly history and monuments. When Obama was there, at least one a-hole. But would you go, like if it were Donald Trump, I feel like liberals would just say absolutely not, under no circumstances, because they're all butthurt about Trump. And maybe some never Trump Republicans. But obviously I would go if Trump were president of the United States. That's an easy question. The question is, would you go if invited? Like, say you're a part of the Georgia Bulldog football team, or you're a part of a national championship hockey team, or you're part of a whatever. Or you just get invited. Would you go? I mean, I went to the State of the Union, and that was Barack Obama speaking, but I got invited by a Republican. Anyway, it's just an interesting side question and question of note. I note that because I'm wearing my Georgia Bulldog hat in honor of the Georgia Bulldogs, who were, in fact, after Joe Biden's people were shamed as a result of not inviting them last year because of COVID. They had not yet invited them this year, and now they have invited them to the White House. It's an honor and an annual tradition, and I think we should end it all. This is just the way that I think. It's too much. If Matt Murphy were king of the world, no fun having at the White House. It's too much. And here, the president has business to attend to. Oh, but now we have to invite the national championship Georgia Bulldog football team, and we have to invite the Super Bowl champions, and we have to invite the NBA champions, and we have to invite Major League Baseball champions, and we have to invite women basketball champions, and we can't forget the NIT champions, and we have to invite soccer, and the lacrosse team won a championship. It's like never ending. How about just stop all that? If I were president of the United States, which would never happen because of all of the skeletons in my closet, I would stop all of that. President Murphy rule number 4. No more sports teams at the White House under my watch. Congratulations to all of you. You don't get up. I mean, we don't have the money, believe it or not, we don't have the money to spend feeding you at the White House just because you won your football game. Now, speaking of feeding people and Donald Trump, how about that? In case you missed it, Donald Trump made an appearance. He was really the first representative of the federal government, if you consider an ex-president to be that, outside of the EPA administrator, to go to East Palestine. I've heard Stein. I've heard Steen. I'm going with Stein from now on. I know I do that at my own peril. So Donald Trump goes to East Palestine. I have the audio of him asking the audience to decide between Trump water and the regular old plain water that's not nearly as good as Trump water, but whatever. We've got the water. It's incredible. It's great water. You'll love it. It's Trump water. We have inferior water as well. This is normal water. I wouldn't recommend this water. I would say, Trump, this is the order that I would do. I would say, first, Trump water. Second, regular bottled water. Third, that icky, nasty Joe Biden DeWine water that they're trying to get you to drink so they can kill you. Also, McDonald's for everybody. Did you see he took the firefighters to McDonald's? I've given Trump some hell last 6 months. You guys know that. Because I think these attacks on Ron DeSantis are a part of an old script. I want to see a new script. I'm coming to the movie again, Donald. I want to see a new movie. I don't want you to replay the old movie. The old movie was, and we weren't expecting the old movie, right? That's part of the problem here. All of you Trump supporters that are listening to me right now and you're about to get mad at me, calm down. I'm trying to explain to you how you attract more people to your cause. Well, they just need to get... No. You attract flies with honey, not vinegar. I know you're all in it to win it. I get that. I'm asking you to work with me to get more people over to your cause. And you don't do that by playing the same script again. You don't do that by showing me the same movie again. And that movie was great. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. I loved every moment of it. I give it an A+. It's one of my all-time top 10 favorites. I love that he came down the escalator, and I love that he challenged the status quo, and I love that he nicknamed everybody, and I love that he called Jeb Bush low-energy Jeb, and please clap. Please clap. And little Marco. He called Marco Rubio Little Marco because he's short. It's funny. But I've seen it. So I've been giving him the business for the last 6 months. I get that. But let me praise the man. Quintessential Trump. You're taking firefighters to McDonald's, and then you challenge the McDonald's people that you know the menu better than they. I know the menu. I've got the menu down by heart. I've eaten everything here. I know the secret menu. I know what you can do with cheese back there. I understand it. I know you can double stack the McMuffins. Don't you fool me. I know better than you. You're the best McDonald's. You're the tippy top of the McDonald's. I've never seen a McDonald's like this. They said you couldn't do it, and you did it. You got it done. Congratulations. I want to work for McDonald's. It's my Donald Trump impersonation. So I thought it was great. I thought Donald Trump has this ability, and I was reminded after a long time of being frustrated with him, I was reminded why he was so good in 2015 and 2016. It's because, understand, Donald Trump's father was a real estate mogul. Donald Trump came from money, although his father was pretty particular about how he wanted Trump to start his real estate empire. But that said, Donald Trump has never wanted for much. Donald Trump is a multi-billionaire. Yet he connects with you and me in a way that most politicians could only dream of. I don't know why, I don't know how, I don't know what that is, but it is. It is. Every person I've ever talked to, and I've talked to Donald Trump once in 2015. It was the time he promised to follow me on Twitter. He's never fulfilled that promise. If you lie to me, you'll lie to America, Mr. President, but whatever. The people that I've talked to that have met him say that that is real, that he is more interested in the interests and the personalities of the average Joes than he will ever be of the CEOs. That's just the way the guy is. And it shows. And it showed in East Palestine. And so on the heels of that, as Joe Biden and his administration deal with an absolute public relations debacle per usual, Donald Trump shows up at East Palestine. Guess who's next? Here comes Mayor Pete. You think Mayor Pete emphatically said to, I think it was George Stephanopoulos, We'll go to East Palestine when we're ready, when it's not a photo op. You remember that clip? I've got that clip too. I'll play it for you in a second. And then like 24 hours later, he's going there? And you want to tell me that Donald Trump didn't have anything to do with that? Come on, man. Come on, man. Give me a little Joe. Come on. Come on, man. Come on. Come on, man's not gone. Who's erasing it? Who's erasing it on the board? Mr. Producer there says that it's erased from the board. I'm sorry, Mr. Executive Producer, you're right. Well, one way or the other, come on, man. Mayor Pete went for a purpose, and he got embarrassed because reporters wanted to know what took him so long, and he did not. How can you imagine it taking you that length of time to speak to it and then that length of time to get out there, and you don't understand the PR disaster that is right around you? You don't understand the real human suffering that's going on in front of you, and then you don't even have a prepared statement at least explaining away in a way that I will accept where you've been. But he was out there. I'll have the audio for you there as well on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. In the meantime, I pulled a Joe Biden today. I get to our facilities here just down from Music Row. The palatial, as you can see on Talk TV, the palatial confines of Super Talk 99.7 WTN. And we're on the second floor. And so I'm coming up the beautiful grand staircase just off the lobby of Cumulus Nashville, and I pulled a Joe Biden. I did. I'm not leader of the free world, so I don't have a camera on me always. I'm thankful of that. You know, the immediate thing you do, it's the trip catch, and then you immediately stand up and look around to see if anybody saw you because you're embarrassed as hell. Nobody saw, thank goodness. So I'm talking about it on a 100,000-watt radio station that I absolutely Bidened the stairs. And it occurred to me when it happened, I said, oh my Lord, I just Bidened the stairs. And then I thought, oh, that's a good verb. When you really, really screw something up, we can say that you Bidened it. When you or you Joed it, and I'm thinking Joed it might have a better punch because Biden has too many syllables. So I Joed the stairs today. I'm all right for those who are concerned. I've got plenty of email correspondence, a lot of text correspondence, but I have letters. I have a letter that I'm going to share with you. I haven't gotten a letter, and I don't know when, but I have a letter. And I hope you didn't see this person's name as I flashed it up on the screen there. I need to kill that. I'm going to share it with you because it brings up an excellent subject that we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about Mayor Pete. We're going to talk about guns on college campuses, and that will parlay itself into a conversation about the University of Alabama and basketball. We will talk about 2024. Sarah Palin has weighed in because I know we're all anxiously anticipating what Sarah Palin has to say about anything. Grand juror in Georgia, just a lot to get to. It is my Friday. So Jay St. Clair will be here on Friday. That's at 2 o'clock. Scott Sapicki in the 1 o'clock hour. You on the phones right now. It's 1222. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy. Let's talk about the event of the season coming in August. I'm so excited about it. It is the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, August 4th through the 6th. Now, before I talk about things that are pretty cool, let's talk about things that aren't pretty cool. Like, waking up before your alarm goes off, that is a bummer. Stepping barefoot on a Lego is a serious bummer. We've been there, done that, right? Falling asleep at the beach, on the beach for like hours on end, that's pretty big summer bummer, right? But you know what's not a bummer? This summer, the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, August 4th through the 6th, the Nashville plays host to 3 full days of racing, music, food, and more. It was one of the bummers of my summer last year that I was out of town when this was in town. But I'm not missing the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. You'll see me there, and I'll have a bunch of my friends, and I want to see you. Let's go for the music. Let's go for the food. Let's go for the fun. And let's go for the racing. Saturday night racing with the return of the Stadium Super Trucks. Tons and tons of racing capped off with Sunday's NTT IndyCar Series racing through the streets of Nashville. It is time to burn rubber and maybe even a few bridges. It is the party of the summertime. Snag your tickets before they're gone at MusicCityGP.com. MusicCityGP.com. Get those tickets. If they run out of tickets and you try to get some, you know what that would be. It would be a bummer. MusicCityGP.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11 or jumping into energy stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
$12:27. I'm kind of feeling like an old man today. I joed the stairs on the way to work.
What a stupid son of a bitch.
Well, I know. I don't know that my intelligence has anything to do with me stubbing it and, falling up the stairs. I fell up the stairs, too. It was a Joe Biden. I did not skin my knee. A super texter wanted to know. No, I'm good. Thank you. But I also feel like an old man, like a Biden. For some reason, I don't know why this is. This happens every day. And we're family, so I feel compelled to relate it to you. We have the super text line, which in the transition between Del Giorno and myself, sometimes I have to get all of my stuff, right? I have to have my stuff. I got my bag back there. I got my computer. I got my laptop. I got the other computer over here. I have my notepad with my notes on it because I'm old school that way. I've got my phone. I've got my letter here. I got my, these are the wonderful advertisers of my show that I want to talk to you about. I'm showing all this to the TV folks. You're missing out if you're not there. So, and then at some point, I have to pull up the super text line so that I can see what's going on over there. And it does not fail, and I do not know why, that when I type my password in for my version of the super text line, I don't know why we have different versions, but we do. I guess it gives me the ability to customize it because on my text, if you see an MM behind any text that you receive from us, that's from me, Matt Murphy. Not Mac Morey, Matt Murphy. So it is inescapable, try as I might, the first time I put my password in, it doesn't work. It says the process failed. So much so that I believe that it's a flaw in the system. And then I go back in there and I hit the eyeball. So, I mean, I feel like an old person, right? It doesn't understand how to work the remote. I'm feeling more and more that way on a day-to-day basis, to be honest with you. And I'm not yet 50. But anyway, on the super text line, 7867 says, Biden-ing is already a term of art used on the television show New Girl, which means always being there or hanging around. Are you Bidening me? I think I'm going to go with Joe-ing then. Joe-ing, because Biden-ing is too much. Too much. Adam writes in with a random thought. The couple on the ED commercial are named Jack and Diane. Maybe Mellencamp should write a sequel. I don't think that's a mistake, by the way. I think that's pretty smart. Because everybody knows the little ditty about Jack and Diane. All right, I'm going to disappoint this super texter in a moment because I'm about to talk about it. I'm going to disappoint those of you who think I'm going to trash the University of Alabama. Now, if you know me for any length of time, for the last 22 years of my radio career, 23 years now, actually, starting in January. I started in January of 2020. That's right, yeah. January of 2000 is when I started talk radio in Montgomery, Alabama. I have never missed an opportunity to trash the University of Alabama. But I don't see it because I believe in the Second Amendment. Super Texter writes, glad you're going to address what's going on in Tuscaloosa. It's disgusting. University of Alabama only woke if it doesn't impact major athletes. How on earth are they justifying playing Miller? Oh, yeah, it's their only hope to win a national championship. All right, 5281, I'm open for different opinions on this, but the details that I understand, he did not provide the weapon. He gave someone their property back. The 5281 said he provided the weapon. What's the weapon policy on campus? It wasn't on campus. It was on the Strip. It was in downtown Tuscaloosa. That is not on campus. I believe in the Second Amendment. It was a legally owned gun, and it did not belong to him. And he was returning the property to the person that it belonged to. So here's my hypothetical. I'm not, and 5281, I love you. And I understand the position that you're taking on this. And so I'm not here to argue with you. I'm just telling you my position, okay? So, and different people can believe differently on this. And we're going to have Jay St. Clair speak on it in the 2 o'clock hour. But I don't believe in the Second Amendment only when it's convenient for me. I believe that people have the right to arm themselves and defend themselves. Now, that's not what happened here, obviously. But how was Brandon Miller supposed to know that? We're getting into this in just a moment. I'd love to hear from you on it. 615-737-9986. It's Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Corn Pop was a bad dude.
So, 1236, it's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I love our listening audience. Happy lunch hour, by the way. The lunch bunch in progress until 1, and then we're here till 3 o'clock. We hand off to the drive at that time. It's information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Now, live on Super Talk TV, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Twitter. By the way, several people are asking me, "Hey, Murph." And I say, "Yeah." And they say, how do I find you on the Twitch there?" And your answer is, I don't know. I've never been on Twitch. Not once in my life. I got the YouTube thing down. I am an addict on Twitter. Twitter is a cesspool of the lowest forms of humanity, and I'm addicted to it. And I got the YouTubes and the Facebook Live thing down, but I've never been on the Twitch, so I can't help you there. Although I will investigate it for you during the break, and I'll find out how you get to the Twitch. But anyway, on the super text line, one of our brilliant listeners said, "You shouldn't call it Bidening, and you shouldn't call it pulling a Joe. Matt, I think I would use corn pop. You see, you corn popped those stairs. Might work better. I like that. I corn popped the stairs, man. Oh, you all right? Yeah, my knee hurts a little bit, but I corn popped those bad boys." Joe Biden's corn popping the nation as we speak. Did you see where Janet Yellen, I don't want to get off on a tangent here when I need to talk about other things, but did you see where Janet Yellen announced that we're spending another, what was it? I had it up a minute ago. Hold on. I don't want to misquote anybody here. It's like $5 billion more dollars for Ukraine. We are now up to, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen announced that the United States will send an additional $10 billion in economic assistance for Ukraine. Estimates of total U.S. economic and military aid to Ukraine now range from somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 billion to $200 billion in the last 12 months. Now, I've not seen that figure at $200 billion. I have seen the $100 billion figure, where I had it at a conservative estimate of $50 billion up to $100 billion. But here's the thing. Why can I not call Congressman Mark Green or Congressman Tim Burchett or Congressman Scott Desjardins or Congressman Andy – oh, wait, that's a different thing. Put him aside for a second. Or Congressman – who did I miss? John Rose, or any of the other ones, or Senator Marsha Blackburn, or Senator Bill Hagerty. They should be able to tell me exactly how much money we've spent on Ukraine. The legislature holds the purse. Yet they can't. Nobody knows. How is he spending all of this money without going through the Congress of the United States of America? Now, did I miss the blank check? I know they gave him a checkbook for Ukraine, but I didn't think it was a blank checkbook. And I will give credit where due, and I hope he's listening so he can hear credit said. But Brian Wilson put it in a way that I think makes really good sense. If you don't get what $100 billion is, we have 435 congressional districts in the United States of America, House of Representative districts. Throw in the, 3 representatives, I think it is, from D.C. or whatever, and there's like 1 non-voting representative from Puerto Rico, whatever. $100 billion of money would send $200+ million to every congressional district in the United States of America, plus Guam, plus Puerto Rico, plus the Virgin Islands, plus D.C. Did I miss anything? I don't think so. Any territories? American Samoa, plus American Samoa. $100 billion, the now low end of the estimate, with an additional $10 billion dedicated today. Once again, this doesn't mean I'm pro-Putin. This doesn't mean I'm pro-Russia. It means I'm pro-accountability. for the money that the American government seems to make up with impunity. All right, but more on the Brandon Miller case. If you've not heard, and I don't want to delve too deeply. I mean, we can if you want to delve deeply into the details of the case. But it is more than just a sports story. It's a society story, and I'm going to tell you why I believe that. Brandon Miller is a star basketball player on the University of Alabama basketball team. The story, as I understand it, after a victory, an afternoon game was played, and after a victory, and I was trying to find the team here that they beat, some of the basketball players went to the Strip in Tuscaloosa, which is an area of clubs and bars just off of campus. And there was an altercation that led to the death of a woman. A preliminary hearing was held. This was about a month ago, a little over a month ago, I guess. A preliminary hearing was held this past Tuesday for Brandon Miller's now former teammate, Darius Miles, who is 21 years of age, used to be on the team, and now is no longer on the team because of his participation in what I'm about to describe to you, and Miles' childhood friend, Michael Buzz Davis. Those two are charged with capital murder in the January 15th Tuscaloosa Strip shooting death of Jamia Jonee Harris, 23. She's a mother, and it is a tragedy. Detective Brandon Culpepper testified on Tuesday that Miles asked Miller to bring him his gun, a weapon which allegedly belonged to Miles legally, but was in Brandon Miller's Dodge Charger. Brandon Miller's attorneys have indicated that he had no knowledge of the gun prior to being asked to pick up Miles, but while traveling to pick up Miles, a text message was sent with Miles asking for his gun. He used slang for the gun. What did he use? I need my joint. He said, you need to bring me my joint. And by joint, he did not mean like dope, which is what I would have thought. He meant his piece. That's the youngster vernacular. Culpepper also testified that Miller's Charger was struck by 2 bullets. He also testified another Alabama basketball player, Jaden Bradley, was also at the scene in the Dodge Challenger. After the shooting, Miller and Bradley's vehicles blocked in by the one Harris was in, according to testimony, but it was not clear if that was intentional. Miller's attorney said Miller was not intentionally blocking the Jeep. Brandon never touched the gun. He was not involved in the exchange in any way. What we understand is that these individuals were together. Miles was in the back seat. Miller claims that he had no knowledge of the weapon, that it was in his back seat along with a jacket, and it was underneath the jacket. Now, while he was going to pick Miles up, Miles asked for his gun. He did not tell him why he wanted the gun. Said, I want my joint. We got trouble or something along those lines. The testimony has obviously set off a firestorm, not just in Alabama, but it is a national conversation about whether or not this star basketball player received preferential treatment by the Tuscaloosa Police Department, whether or not he's receiving special treatment by the University of Alabama. Would they treat another student in the same fashion that was, quote-unquote, involved in an altercation like this? Now, you should understand, Brandon Miller, Miles is off the team. They booted him off the team immediately. He was directly involved in all of this. Although he is not accused of firing the fatal shot, Davis, his best friend or good friend, was accused of firing the fatal shot. Brandon Miller's position is I didn't know what was going on and I wasn't there. Miller dropped Miles off at a sports bar called 1225, but did not stay because the line was too long. According to testimony earlier in the week, the victim in the case, Harris, and her boyfriend, Cedric Johnson, along with her first cousin, Asia Humphrey, were also at the club. They left and stopped by a nearby grill to get something to eat. It was then that they encountered Davis, who was dancing in front of Harris's Jeep. Johnson told Davis his girlfriend was not interested. Apparently, Davis was hitting on his girlfriend. Culpepper said Davis said, "You don't know who I am and what I do." Miles and Davis walked away from the Jeep, but later returned. Culpepper said Miles texted Miller in the early morning hours saying, "I need my joint," meaning his gun. Miles and Davis walked to Miller's car and got something believed to be the gun out of the back seat. Miles told Davis the heat is in the hat. That statement, he said, was meant that the gun was present. Heat's in the hat, meaning I have my gun. Okay, so just focus on this fact. It was a legally owned weapon. No crime had occurred. Miller was not at the scene. I'm just setting this up because I don't think Brandon Miller deserves to be permanently removed from the University of Alabama, and I don't think he deserves some of the scrutiny that he's getting from individuals that I don't know if you know all of the. I'm trying to give you the full backstory so you can make an informed decision, and we might come to different conclusions. But here's what I believe in. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that no matter your background, no matter the color of one's skin, no matter your station, that you have the right to keep and carry. You don't have the right to shoot people. I'm not saying that this was in self-defense at all. What I am saying is that Brandon Miller had done nothing in violation of the law allowing Miles to have a gun in his car, even if he had awareness of the gun. Obviously, he had awareness of the gun at the time that Miles asked for it. Miller's people say that he was already on the way to pick them up at the time that he sent that text message. The Tuscaloosa Police Department has investigated this, and they've not charged Brandon Miller with anything. And they aren't going to charge him with anything. But yet still we have largely sports fans screaming foul, no pun intended, saying that Miller should be booted off the team. Now, here's where I'm at on it. Should Brandon Miller be suspended for a number of games on general stupidity? Absolutely. You're out late at night, you're running with a crowd, you got guns, and you find, based on the fact that you found yourself in that situation and you put yourself at that level of risk, hell, suspended for the rest of the regular season, I don't care. But I find it fascinating that people are calling on the University of Alabama to fire their coach. So you either believe one or two things. And I attempted to engage Clay Travis in this last night, and he wouldn't have any of it. I don't know if Clay is accustomed to engaging just, internet trolls or whatever. I don't know. Maybe he's big time in me. I don't know. But Clay's like, everybody should be fired, and it's a travesty and whatnot. And I'm like, wait a minute. You either believe, if you believe that Brandon Miller should be kicked off the team, for example, then you're telling me that you either believe that the Tuscaloosa Police Department is covering up criminal activity on the part of Miller, that they're, because of his status, they are giving him a pass that they would not give me or you. Okay, that's fine. If you believe that, then I can understand that. I don't believe that, but I can understand that. You either believe the police are covering something up because of his station as a basketball player at the campus, or your expectation is that the University of Alabama should ignore the findings of the police department, instead come to their own independent conclusions about what happened, and kick him off the team, despite the fact that he's been charged with nothing. And despite the fact that he did nothing wrong. Everyone's saying he took a loaded gun to a guy. The guy legally owned the gun. He had you have to prove to me that he understood the intent of the individual at the time that he took him the gun. Here's the hypothetical that I would present. The hypothetical, oh, I'm sorry, I just looked over. Sorry, man, Clay Travis is several steps above you. I don't know what that means. I mean, I understand that he has a national platform. I get that. If you're saying that I'm too low on the totem pole for him to respond to me, so be it. That doesn't mean that he's right. I'm right, he's wrong, but that's fine. Big-time national radio show hosts are wrong sometimes, and Clay's wrong. He's just wrong. He can be miles ahead of me in terms of popularity. He's also wrong. Suspend the guy for a certain amount of time, that's fine. My hypothetical is this, real quick. So Belle, Kay, and Matt Murphy go hunting. We take our hunting rifles and we go on a hunting trip. We get back from our hunting trip. I drop Belle off at his house. I go home. I have dinner. I settle in, maybe watch a movie, whatever. At about midnight, Belle calls me on my cell phone and says, "Hey, dude, I left my hunting rifle in your truck. I need my hunting rifle." I noticed that Belle's a little slurry on the phone. I think maybe he's had a drink or two, but he's at his house, and I'm not doing anything. And although I think it's weird, he's kind of like, "I need my gun." And I say, "Okay." And I get in my car, and I take his gun to him at his house. I give him his gun, and before I get out of the driveway, Belle takes the gun and shoots his wife. Am I an accessory to that crime? We'll let you answer that question in a moment. It's 12:52. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, friends, Tennessee Men's Clinic wants to see you. Guys, if you are of a certain, well, really any age, but if you find yourself feeling sluggish or run down and you don't know why, you need to get it checked. You need to know your numbers, men. I know we like to avoid our blood pressure. We like to avoid that cholesterol number. We like to avoid a lot of things that we might be doing wrong in our world. Well, don't avoid this because it can lead to unforeseen circumstances down the road, like bedroom activity problems. That's where kind of the low testosterone thing goes. But it starts manifesting itself with a lower energy or maybe just a lack of desire. So if you're feeling that, time to get checked. Go to Tennessee Men's Clinic for less than $100. They can set you up with a complete blood sample, and they'll get it done for you. Tennessee Men's Clinic will then prescribe if they find you are low T. If you're not, they'll say, well, maybe it's sleep, maybe it's other things. They can work with you and try to figure out what it might be. But if you're low T, they have a prescription for success, a variety of different ways to get that T level back up where it should be. All right, so Tennessee Men's Clinic can be found at TennesseeMen'sClinic.com. That's TennesseeMen'sClinic.com, or give them a call, 615-208-9090, 208-9090. You know, like a lot of things in life, whether it's your doctor, your mechanic, or your heating and air conditioning unit, you have to trust the person that is knowledgeable to tell you the truth when it comes to problems with that unit. Hey, it's Matt Murphy for Efficient Heating and Cooling, and I found the man. His name's Jeff Eddy with Efficient Heating and Cooling, and I've been telling and singing his praises since I've been in Nashville, Tennessee. Proven results. I trust Jeff Eddy and his crew to do what's right at Efficient Heating and Cooling. They're going to tell you the truth about whether or not it's time to replace or if it is possible to repair. And look, sometimes Jeff gives you the hard news. He'll tell you, look, we can make this work, but we don't have a lot of life left here. If you want to go ahead and replace, I can do that. He's a diamond contractor with Mitsubishi Electric, an Elite Pro partner with Rheem as well. But I can give you another year. I can give you another season. I can't promise you anything. He's just going to be as truthful as you would expect when it comes to your heating and air conditioning unit. So if you need a second opinion or if something's going wrong and you know it, it's time to call Jeff Eddy in Efficient Heating and Cooling. Go to efficienthvac.net on the web, efficienthvac.net, or 615-784-4424, 784-4424 for Efficient. All right, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'm putting our next guest to work because we were so engrossed in conversation, I didn't do my job. But he's got it. I mean, he's on top of things. He is a regular on Thursdays nowadays, and we'll get to him in just a moment. By the way, it's 104, almost 105, Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Want to share some of your thoughts with regard to the subject that I brought up last hour before we introduce our next guest. And I understand there are a lot of strong feelings about it. I have a lot of strong feelings about the Second Amendment to the Constitution of the United States. And that's where my thoughts on this start. And I'm talking about the situation in Tuscaloosa that has really started making national headlines involving the number 2 team in the country in college basketball, the Alabama Crimson Tide, involving their star player, Brandon Miller. And the question is whether or not there should be some sort of punishment forthcoming against Brandon Miller based on his role in an incident that led to a woman's death on the Strip in Tuscaloosa in January. 5651 says, Matt, interesting scenario with the hunting analogy. I think you might be considered a facilitator in the crime as your actions provided the weapon to Bell. No. I was giving someone back their property. I'll ask Jay St. Clair from a legal perspective about this coming up. My scenario was this. I'm trying to take a couple of elements out of this because a lot of people are saying, he brought a loaded gun to the Strip. And the Strip is a populated nightclub area off of the college campus in Tuscaloosa. For me, it's not about that. I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe that people have the right to keep and bear arms on the Strip or in Knoxville. I mean, what does the fact that there are people drinking have to do with anything? To me, it doesn't. Not when this person's in their own vehicle and the gun is legally owned. So 3064 said, did Brandon Miller do anything criminally wrong? No, and no, your example neither did you, but I doubt you'd want to be back on the air the next day. Ms. B's family could decide to sue you and take your RV. Man, at this point, you could have it. And Brandon Miller get drafted by an NBA team. No, I would agree with you, and I would say this. This is where I fall on it. The man's not been charged with anything criminally. Either we have a corrupt police department, and if that's the case, we need to get into that. If the police department's covering up for Miller, then I want to know about it. And my position will change completely on this, obviously. But where I stand now on it, if I was the coach of the team, and I'm not, but if I were, I would suspend Brandon Miller for the rest of the regular season just on general principle because you're doing stupid things and hanging around with stupid people. And you almost got caught up in something that could have cost you your entire career and your freedom. And a woman's life has been lost. All right, so we'll put that on the back burner, and maybe we'll get to more of your comments coming up. A lot of you disagree with me, and I love that. Disagreement goes to the front of the line, 615-737-9986. Now, I bet you. Oh, look, Sapicki's taking stuff from me. He's like making himself at home. Look, what's he doing? Every Thursday, he joins us. It is kind of a legislative roundup, if you will. It's in the 1 o'clock hour. He is one of our good friends. He's a fine representative. His name is Scott Sapicki. And he is looking good. He's got this paisley-looking tie. And you can probably see him on Super Talk TV right now. He is looking as bad as I look. He looks great. Hey, Scott, how are you? Well, hold on a second. You know what? It was the best setup I've done yet, and you ruined it. Thanks a lot, Bell. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Great.
Looking good? Feeling good?
It's been a long week.
Yeah?
Long week in the General Assembly. A lot of stuff going on.
I want you guys busy, though. I want you earning your keep over. I want you earning your part-time pay.
Well, some people think we're dangerous when we're in session.
That's true. Hold on to your wallets is what I like to say.
Especially in Washington.
Yeah, it's true. That's a different nut. We'll talk about that one day. What's been going on this week? What's the big thing this week? You were telling me, you gave me a little tip right before, but I want you to tell the audience what's the big thing happening in the House.
So the two bills that had to deal with the drag shows and the gender reaffirming surgeries did pass the House floor today. They've already passed the Senate. That'll go to the governor's desk probably in about 7 days. Hopefully the governor will sign them into law, and we'll be protecting these children about not being able to make these decisions until they're adults.
No, that's great. It's great. I mean, based on the evidence that I've seen, I know you've read all of the research studies as well that don't get a lot of attention in the press because they don't confirm some of the biases that some have been suggesting. But I think it's wonderful that we're protecting young people and they can get the treatment that they need absent these permanently life-altering surgeries and whatnot. And if they reach the age of majority and want to make a determination on their own, so be it. But let's protect the young people. I love it.
The other things we're working on, there's a bill that just passed. I passed a bill 2 years ago that prohibits males from playing female athletic sports.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? There's a bill right now going through the House that basically applies that now to private schools. We had one of our longtime girls' schools here in Nashville change their policy allowing men to play girls' sports, and so now we are shifting that. That's pretty good, Bill. You did a good job.
No. You know why he's doing that, right?
Why is that?
He wants you to look nice on TV.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly what he's doing.
Well, it makes it easier to find me in public, too. That's the problem. But making sure that boys cannot play girls' sports even at the private level, too. TSSAA has not weighed in on this, so I'm assuming like the other bill, they'll follow whatever lead of.
Is this something that's been an issue or just kind of a preemptive?
It's something that came up last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then the school backed off of it, and it kind of said, "Oh, we got a problem here," because if you could have,
I think I remember this. You
could have a private school playing a public school, and it'd be under two different rule sets.
Right.
So we're trying to make sure that we maintain the fairness of the girls' sports there. Another bill that we passed is made it through subcommittee is the one dealing with post-traumatic stress syndrome of firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
We all know the things that firefighters have to see, running into fires to pull us out or going to accidents and trying to save people's lives. And it weighs heavily on these firemen and firewomen. And so we are recognizing that as something that would be covered under insurance for them, especially at the state level. So that was something that was a really nice bill to pass. And then kind of shifting a little bit back to education, because, that's one of my wheelhouses there. We had more hearings this week on why 66% of our third graders are potentially having to be retained after 4 years of education in Tennessee. We had the ex-commissioner, Ms. Wright, come in from Mississippi, who we used to be thankful for Mississippi being in education because they were always behind us, has now passed Tennessee. And one of the things that they implemented about now 10 years ago was a third grade retention. The good thing about it was she was able to tell us, well, if you retained a student in third grade, what happened to them when they hit sixth grade?
Because they've got some history now.
They got some data to show
Right.
us. And what it showed was those students who were retained in third grade because they were behind are now outpacing the students that were on the same grade level because you let them catch up. And now they're able to accelerate their learning curve. And one of the key things that we're looking at in Tennessee is, why are we waiting till third grade? Why aren't we doing this in kindergarten to get them all the supports? Like I said, Governor Lee and Commissioner Schwinn, they have a bill that's going to expand kindergarten, are going to expand the summer school and the tutoring for these kids starting all the way back in kindergarten. Let's get them remediated in kindergarten so when they hit first grade, we're not having to deal with kids that are 2 and 3 grade levels behind.
I feel, especially for new listeners who may be coming in right in the middle of our long-standing discussion about this to maybe back up. And you might be able to fill in some gaps, questions that I've not yet asked you. So where are we now? Like, I don't have any kids, but let's say I moved to Tennessee and I do. And my child is 4 years old. I'm getting ready to go. And so when they're 5, they can go to kindergarten now?
That's correct.
And is there no retention until 3rd grade?
Well, it's on the books right now. But we have data to support that really there's no children being retained right now anywhere.
They just get passed.
They just keep moving on and moving on.
Until that 3rd grade test.
Well, that's when testing actually starts at the state level.
Okay.
And so that's when the gateway into the window opens up. Why do we test in 3rd grade? Why is that the first state test they take? Well, when you talk to teachers, and we had plenty of testimony this week, like I told you before, the children learn to read K through 3. And after that, 4 through 12 and on, they read to learn. And so if you cannot read and comprehend on grade level by 3rd grade, the complexity of education keeps getting higher and higher and higher. And what we're seeing is, and this is the thing we haven't addressed yet, Matt, is we're focusing on K through 3. The data shows us that we have 33% of our 3rd graders reading on grade level in 3rd grade. That drops to 28% in 8th grade. So there's something going on between 4 and 8 that we're shedding kids who are on grade level. That's the next big thing we're going to start attacking. What we got to fix is get a wave of kids coming through K through 3 that are on grade level.
You know, you said that to me a couple of weeks ago, and it really galvanized. I mean, it is set in stone in my head that it makes so much sense why kids can't potentially catch up after grade 3. And I'll just reiterate what you just said again, that if you're learning to read K through 3, well, when we get to the 4th grade, that teacher obviously, she or he, they're assessing their students. They're good. They know what they're doing. I don't presume to understand the complexities of that job. However, they do carry certain assumptions. They have a syllabus. They have a lesson plan.
Standards.
And so they're moving forward, and it doesn't involve continuing to learn to read because there's an expectation that they have.
That's correct.
And that creates a dynamic. It makes so much sense where the poor kids that for whatever reason haven't kept up, they're lost. They're never going to catch up to the wagon.
And so we cannot continue to do business as usual over the last decade. It cannot happen anymore. We had another discussion, Hume Fogg that sits over your shoulder. It's a high school here on Broadway. Mm-hmm. Think about it, on Broadway. As noisy as Broadway is, Hume Fogg is a magnet school on higher education. It teaches these kids, just really pushes them hard. There is a prerequisite to get into Hume Fogg. You have to be a 3.0 student, right?
Okay.
And you have to test on your TCAP tests approaching or on track or better. So you are on grade level when you hit Hume Fogg and you're a B student. We got kids graduating, 98% graduation rate, going to Harvard, Yale. We got the best colleges and universities coming into Tennessee to pluck these kids out of here and really take them to places in education to be leaders in our country, right? Because when they show up to freshman year, they're on track, ready to learn. The problem we have in our general public schools is you got a freshman teacher who's got half the class or 3/4 of the class that are on grade level. How do you educate those kids?
That's right.
So we've got to look back, and I give total credit to Chairman White. He was on this morning with
Dan Mandis. I heard that. Yeah.
And we are looking at it. We are laser focused on K3 and especially K. We got to get these kids on grade level.
So the statistics, 66% of 3rd graders who
potentially could be retained.
Get tested could potentially be retained. Where are we on that? Are they going to be retained? I mean, where is that decision happening, and what is your expectation as to what's going to happen?
So we meet. I just left the meeting of the education chairman in the House, and we're talking about this. We all believe that we got to draw this line in the sand. We cannot keep going business as usual. We understand that Governor Lee and Commissioner Schwinn are running the bill to increase the summer school and the tutoring supports. They recognize this all the way down to kindergarten. What we've got to come up with is, and the magic number, and I don't want to get into the weeds here on you, but we look at the 40th percentile. Kids that test on the last benchmark before they take the TCAP test If you test in the 40th percentile, teachers are telling us that with summer school and tutoring the following year, they can close that gap on those kids and get them on grade level for their next year. What we're looking at is, can we go with that? Can we use that if you're close on the TCAP test, the end of course test, approaching, and you score in that 40th percentile on the last benchmark, and take the summer school and take the tutoring, is that going to be enough to get you on grade level so that you're ready to succeed in fourth grade?
Mm-hmm.
That's the debates we're starting to have. We're having discussions on possibly who can ask for a waiver of a kid that maybe had a catastrophic event, a mom and dad went through a divorce, a death in the family, something that just destroyed the kid's academic year.
Right.
But Matt, we got to be careful here.
Start creating loopholes.
We have to make sure that feelings don't get in the way of doing what's right for the kid.
Yeah, because mom and daddy don't want to hear it. I mean, I get that. They don't want to believe it, and they don't want to. I'm not faulting them when I say this. They don't want to accept it. I get it. I mean, they want to believe that they can make magic happen and get their child caught up. Right. When sometimes I think the educators have to give the hard news that no, the best way to the best plan of action for the best success for your child is retention.
And that's one of the things we can do at the General Assembly, right? We can give those teachers the cover they need to say, look, we've tested your child. They are behind. We have the tools to help them, but they got to be retained.
Right.
And I have to retain them because state law says I have to retain them. So what we're doing is we're going to be the bad guys, right? Let us be the bad guys.
Well, you guys are always the bad guys.
We're always the bad guys. And here's where it hit home with me. I was on my way over here, and I showed you this text. I got a text from one of my teachers. I won't say from where. I don't want to give them away. But they sent me a text because they know I'm coming to talk to you about education. That's very passionate of mine. And they said he's a ninth grade teacher. He's a freshman teacher. And one of his students that he has in his class just got evaluated. He's reading on a first grade level.
That's just...
Now that child is 3 years away from hitting the real world.
Mm-hmm.
Is the real world forgiving? Does the real world care that you read on a first grade level?
No.
They don't.
They care about performance.
Right. So what does that kid who's 3 years away from graduation, who's probably going to get a diploma, what chance does he have in this world?
I mean, the chances are still there, but boy, that's narrow.
Well, that's
narrow.
So we've done all this stuff in education in high school, dual enrollment, AP coursework, career technical. But there's a premise behind that. One, you can read and comprehend on grade level. And number two, you can do basic math. We haven't started having, you haven't heard me talk about math yet. We got a math problem in Tennessee.
So you know how much I love the proposal that you give the ability for the educators through law to retain after kindergarten as opposed to third grade, eliminate a lot of the stigma involved in it. I love that, and I hope it is.
It's coming.
Because I think it makes such sense. If the educators themselves tell Scott Sapicki and Matt Murphy that they can identify through testing those students that need to be retained after kindergarten, get them in the process one more year, give them that good stuff that they need to launch their first grade year the proper direction. If that's going to benefit them by the time they get to third grade, let's do it.
Absolutely.
I'm right there with you. All right, 121. We'll talk about some other issues. Scott and I have made nice way too long, so we're going to talk about closed primaries. I think we might just have a mild disagreement on that. I want to talk to you about medical marijuana. There's a bill over in the Senate. We'll discuss that as well. 121 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, back to it. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Matt Murphy Show in progress. Representative Scott Sapicki, our weekly legislative roundup with Scott, focusing, as we often do, on education. And I promised we'd move on to a couple of other things, and I'm going to have to suspend that maybe until right after the bottom of the hour because a number of questions coming in on the Super Text line, and they're good ones. So let's see this first one. Matt, I have a third grader. She's been informed of the test and the likelihood of being held back if she does not perform up to expectations. She's a straight A student, and we've talked about her ability to ace this test. She's borderline on having anxiety attacks because of this. She is a straight A student because we did not start her in kindergarten until age 6. Good for you. You're thinking as a parent. I think
There's a bill on that, isn't there?
I think that's smart.
There's a bill coming on that, isn't there?
And who's behind that bill?
Some really good looking guy.
Well, then it's not you, Sapicki. And it's more about age and the brain's maturity level. I think this goes, and yeah, I'll let you, if you want to, speak on the anxiety. And I don't want your kids to be anxious about all of this, but we need to know what they know, at certain points in their academic career. But talk to me about this age 6 concept, because that's a smart parent, right?
So that's a parent that held their child back a year. They didn't start kindergarten until they were age 6. The cognitive and emotional development of a 6-year-old is a lot different than a 5-year-old. You can talk to kindergarten teachers right now, and they can pick them out just by having a conversation with them of who's a late starter, who's an early starter.
Mm-hmm.
The statistical data shows out there, especially with, remember I asked the comptroller to do that report on is there some kind of relevance between a student that was held back, a late starter in a redshirt year in kindergarten versus one that was started early. And out of the 33% of those students that tested on track on our TCAP tests, 83% were considered late starters. Now, we got a 33% literacy rate now. If we hold them back in kindergarten, the ones that aren't ready, and we get them the help they need K through 2, and let's say we shift that third grade where now our scores are 70 to 80% of our kids are on grade level, what kind of classroom is that in fourth grade?
Good. So right now, just to clarify in my head, right now a parent can choose to hold.
Mm-hmm.
But what your kindergarten proposal would be is you would give the teacher more and the school administration more active involvement in meeting with the parents, getting together and saying, hey, we don't know if you've thought of this, but we think maybe another year of kindergarten might be best for your child.
Right, because we turn it from being subjective to objective.
Mm-hmm.
I have an assessment they're going to take, and let me tell you, I've seen those kindergarten assessments. They're not real detailed.
I mean, they're basics.
But they're making sure that what they had to know in kindergarten so that they could be successful in first grade, they're taking with them. And I think when you have that type of entrance into where real education starts in first grade, not that they're not getting educated in kindergarten, but I'm talking about the structure of reading, of math, science, that the kids are sitting there and they're starting to learn how to, okay, you got to sit still here and you got to follow along in the book. You got to follow along. Teaching them how to be a student, it starts in first grade.
Let's see. This next. I'm all for holding school systems accountable. What happens if they don't meet standards after the second year of third grade? Also, how are we going to fit all the third graders in the classroom? Seems like a big log jam if 60% are being held back.
Well, potentially there's 60% being held back. There are right now, through the Department of Education, 9 different exceptions or waivers that students can get. If they score on the 40th percentile of the last benchmark that they're giving before the TCAP test, that can be used for a waiver. English language learners, special ed students, right? They would not fall under this bill, so they'd be promoted because there's guidelines with them.
Well, and I would say that this is an important statistic to know, 66%. That's very important to know.
Right.
We're not holding back 66% of students. It's not going to happen. Now, but it gives us an idea of how serious we need to take the issue and begin dealing with it.
Here's what's really interesting, and this is, you talk to parents, and I brought up to Hume Fogg. Why is Hume Fogg so successful? And from the principle of Hume Fogg, these kids are showing up to freshman year on grade level because their parents are engaged with the school. Because they have an investment. They want the kids to go to Hume Fogg, and they want them to be able to be successful there. What we're doing is, ever since now, by the way, this retention bill passed almost 2 years ago. This isn't brand new.
Right.
It's been on the books for almost 2 years. And so people have had time to prepare for this. Sometimes we don't prepare like we should. But what it's done, Matt, is because this retention bill's out there, and now school districts are having to send notices home to parents saying, hey, your child potentially off the last benchmark that was just given in December may be a candidate for retention. Guess what it's done? We have parents interacting with their teachers now.
Well, and let's call it like it is, Scott. You talk to enough teachers, you talk to enough administrators. There's only so much they can do, especially early on. And I'm not faulting or saying they're not. I'm saying there must be. It's a three-legged stool. It's the child, the teacher, and the parent. And the parent has to be there and present.
And you've got to have parents that understand that I just don't pack up a box lunch for them and send them off to school. It's what happens after that. What happens when they're 1 year old, when you're reading to them and helping them learn how to read and do their colors and do their numbers. The reason why these kids are so successful that show up. Now, there's some kids that can overcome the inadequacies of a home, but the ones that show up that are on grade level when they hit kindergarten, boy, they just take off. And we had that text from that one person that came in and said, hey, I held my girl and started her in 6th grade. She is excelling. Now, anxiety, right? Have you ever taken a test you didn't have anxiety for? Even a breathalyzer you probably had to take.
Oh, that's right. I mean,
You know?
yeah. I mean, even if if you get pulled, hey, that's a good analogy. If you get pulled over by the police, even if you know that it's just you were going 5 miles and over the speed limit or whatever, you're still like, ooh,
Right.
you're anxious.
Because there is a finality to what you're going to do, right? You're being evaluated. We owe it to these kids to be able to show them where they are. We owe it to them because they have to build that year after year after year of confidence of being able to do the work.
My grandpa told me when I was a kid, Scott, he said the only better lesson that you'll get than winning is losing.
That's right.
And how to handle those situations.
And we have to make
That's
sure
a
that
life
people
skill.
don't like losing.
That's right. It's a life skill. It's 132 Super Talk 99.7 WTN. All right, I promise the gloves are off. It's Beauty versus the Beast, and I'm not saying who's who. Coming up next on Super Talk. Boy, it's warmer weather, although it's still February. And I know that Jeremy Reeves and his staff, his team of professionals at Nashville Painting Company, they're hard at it. They're getting after some of those quotes. They'll give you exact scopes and pricing at no cost to you. More on that in a second. But they're getting after it, painting the exterior of your home. They're getting ready for exterior painting season. Right now, Jeremy would classify this as interior painting season. And as such, he has his most aggressive pricing yet. They have the best paint brands on the market today. They have the best artists and craftsmen painters in Nashville and Middle Tennessee, and they're ready to assist you in getting that house up to your standards. Interior work, the living room, dining area, whatever it might be, they'll get it done. Exterior, deck standing, they'll take care of that too. Brick line washing, and the best warranties in the industry are at Nashville Painting Company. NashvillePaintingCompany.com for more information. That's NashvillePaintingCompany.com. Or here's the phone number, 615-635-0350, 635-0350. It's Nashville Painting Company. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Scott Sapickian with us for one more segment. We'll get into a couple of other pieces of legislation not having to do with education. The education conversation is always so good and informative, and he's teaching me as much as he's teaching you, and I appreciate him coming on for these legislative roundups on Thursdays. We spend the breaks talking about baseball, and I'm how was Venezuela when you were down there? Was that was pre Hugo Chavez, right?
There's a long story I can tell you one day, but it was pretty incredible. I can tell you this: when I spent my years down in Venezuela playing baseball, it was a democracy. Mm-hmm. Oil was flowing to the world. Mm-hmm. It was probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. We stayed in Puerto La Cruz. I played for the Puerto La Cruz Caribes, which is the Indians, and they're on the far east coast. We were on the ocean. We stayed at a 5-star hotel on the beach, and I was 24 years old.
And if you want to understand how you take one of the most beautiful countries in the world and turn it into an absolute blank hole, then socialism. Yeah, and Hugo Chavez.
The thing that's a shame is, I need to tell you the story. Can I tell you the story real quick?
Yeah, come on.
So I'm hitting third in the lineup, right? And there's a guy in front of me named Chavez. No big deal, right? Little third baseman, no big deal. And in those days, you're playing in front of 25,000, 30,000 people. And so I'm on deck, and Tony Armas, who played for the Oakland A's and the California Angels, was our hitting coach. And 30,000 people, and they announced this kid, blah, 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 Chavez, and the whole stadium goes crazy. Mm-hmm. Chavez, crazy. And I'm looking around, and I turn around to Tony Armas. I go, man, who is this guy? Is this like the Babe Ruth of Venezuela? He started laughing. He said, no, you're witnessing a political protest. Because if you uttered the name Hugo Chavez in public, they would arrest you. But because you're cheering for the baseball player Chavez, everybody can make a political protest. And I'm thinking the whole time, I'm like, this is probably one of the best baseball players I ever played with. I didn't get his autograph. He was just some schmuck that played third base that was named Chavez.
But people understood how to take advantage.
Because it was a democracy back then, and they believed in their rights to say things. Guess what?
He changed all that.
You don't say those now.
He changed all that. I had a conversation yesterday with one of your colleagues over in the House, and I love Jody Barrett. He's a freshman,
good guy.
Freshly elected, and he I don't think he's carrying this bill, but he is supportive of it and signed on as a co-sponsor that would close primaries in the state of Tennessee and create party registration. Mm-hmm. Are you in favor of this? And just talk to me about where you are on it.
Yes, I am. I'm born in St. Louis. They have the whole party thing up there where the parties make their nominations. People who are choosing Republicans to be on the ballot, they should be Republicans choosing Republicans, and Democrats should have the right to choose Democrats. So that most people, unfortunately, may not have the time to meet me and may not have the time to meet an opponent. And so how you identify as a voter would help you identify of someone you don't know of who they are. Mm-hmm. A level of expectation of job performance, per se. One of the big arguments we had was cost, right? Why, if I'm an independent, why am I paying for primaries? Well, you're not really paying for primaries. And let me explain to you why, because we went through this down in Murray County. All local elections that are partisan, those elections happen in August. You have things at the party level, like the Republican Party could call for a convention, a nominating convention, to where that's all held internally, where the members who identify themselves as Republican in Murray County would show up to a convention, their bona fides would be verified, and then if you want to run for mayor, you want to run for school board, you want to run for county commission, you stand up in front of the Republicans and you say, hey, my name is Matt Murphy and I want to run for school board in District 5. And you make your pitch to the Republicans. And those Republicans have a convention and they nominate, have elections and they nominate a slate of people to go to the August election, which is the state primary, which is already paid for. So there's no cost to the locals. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted to have a regular primary, that's where the cost would be outside of it. That'd be back probably in March. So that would be a cost that the locals would have to absorb. But
right. So you're saying that local elections would happen simultaneous to primary elections, so there would not be an additional cost.
That's correct.
And I could pick nits on it about printing or whatever, and I won't. But that comes off to someone who's against this concept as somewhat politically convenient. I mean, kind of slick.
Well, that's the playing field.
Right. I get it.
That's the playing field that we play under. I think the whole premise you have.
Well, let me ask you this way before you. I don't want to interrupt your thought, but is this a solution in search of a problem? I mean, have we had this problem, or I mean, are we experiencing a problem where Democrat? I mean, this is a largely Republican state, so I would think the issue that we're tackling is you've got Democrats in largely Republican areas that want to kind of submarine the party primaries, and it could happen the other way, I suppose, in Memphis and some of these other largely Democratic areas.
Well, in theory, you could have, if you could organize it well enough, right? If you could always organize it enough, that you could have Republicans in a uncontested Republican primary cross into a Democrat primary because you just show up and say, hey, I want to vote Democrat, and they hand you a ballot. You could have a Republican walk in and choose a candidate that would make it very difficult for that Democrat to win, right? And vice versa. All this does is say, look, when you go to vote in a primary, tell us who you are, right? And vote accordingly. Ask for that primary ballot or this primary ballot. And if you're an independent, then basically you don't have a dog in the hunt in the primary. You're waiting to see who this party nominates because you don't want to identify as either one. You want your independence. You want your libertarian, right? So you stand back and you say, I'm going to cast my vote who I think both best represents my libertarian values.
Well, I've always felt a little weird voting in the Republican primary because I don't identify. I mean, I'm an independent and I'm a libertarian, small L libertarian. But, are
you a libertarian conservative or socialist?
I'm a small L libertarian, meaning I don't believe with all of the policies of the political party.
Correct.
Although I'm largely consistent outside of some of their foreign policies are just kind of out there. And I've long said for 20 years that if libertarians would focus a little less on dope and prostitutes, they'd probably get a little more play in the United States. But, be that as it may, I wouldn't have a problem with this if you completely, separated it. I know that that's not the playing field that we're dealing with. You address that. But at the same time, it just feels like you're giving the political parties a little more power
in choosing their candidates.
Right. So
who should choose the Republican candidate?
So separate the two then. Separate the function of the state from the function of the party completely and let the political parties pay for their own primaries. And, and all they have to do is pay for them. The state can still run them to make sure that they're accurate. Just the political parties have to reimburse the state for all the cost of running the elections, the primary elections. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But I understand we're picking nits at this point, right. But that's a great political debate. On the medical marijuana piece, I have long advocated, here's the libertarian coming out, that medical marijuana is an effective tool. I think the studies are clear. The debate for me over the last 10 or 15 years has always been how to make sure that we've got real people with real issues that have real benefit from the medical cannabis as opposed to people that are just trying to get high. That's the big question at this stage. Do you feel like that's the central question here, and where are you on that?
Well, it's how you pick winners and losers. Nobody, the long-term cancer care, right? The pain mediation we have.
Right.
There is some medical about ADD and ADHD, right? How marijuana can help that.
Seizure effectiveness, sure.
There's documented case on that. We know that. The problem you run into is how do I keep it away from kids? How do I keep someone who's high from driving kids in a car?
Mm-hmm.
How do I, and then the whole alcohol thing comes in. I get the whole argument, right? And how do I keep from making kings of industry, the ones who can do it just most effectively? And then here's the other problem.
Little pot monopolies in the state.
Little fiefdoms all over the place. And then the last problem is, well, you say that you have seizures, right? And I say, okay, well, we're going to allow it for that. Well, when do you say somebody's ailment isn't enough to be able to take advantage of something that can make their life better? You start picking winners and losers.
Mm-hmm.
And then the long-term effects. Now, I've seen the study after study of long-term effects of marijuana use with schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
It's real. And so, you get someone who's on hospice care, extreme pain. My father issues.
We all have compassion for those people.
I understand your pain. I understand that we are looking at a matter of time before you're no longer with us instead of just wanting to get high because you just don't want to feel the pain anymore, right? I get it, right? But how do you get somebody that is in chronic pain for the remainder of their life that might be 30 years that wants to start taking medical marijuana and after a certain amount of time, now are dealing with schizophrenia, which is a whole nother problem you got to put up with. and deal with? How do you do that? And, I know when Wisconsin was battling this when I was older, my college roommate was a state senator. And I called him on this because this issue keeps coming up in Tennessee all the time. And I asked him, he said, the problem we couldn't figure out was how to stop from making kings and how to say, well, whose ailment is enough and whose isn't enough. And they just decide we're out. We're not going to do it.
No, I get it. I mean, every argument you bring up is valid, and that's where the discussion should be on these types of things. And I would completely agree with it. And I've long said that the biggest enemy of those that truly believe that there is good and medicinal use to marijuana, the plant, are the recreational users, because they take advantage of people like me who would like to see medical marijuana advances made in medical science. They take advantage of that and lob onto that. And I'll give you an example. California is a great example of the worst of what could come of it, because California passed this incredibly loosey-goosey early on 20 years ago. They had this loosey-goosey medical marijuana legislation that literally created, little dock-in-the-box joints right beside marijuana dispensaries. I walked to, Dr. Scott. What's wrong? You got pain? Here's your card, and you go in. I mean, it was recreational, but they called it medical, and it was just awful. And it was tragic, and it exacerbated the problems in California, too.
And that's what we got to stay away from. It
needs to be structured, no doubt.
It doesn't lead to a good place. Like the whole so a couple years ago, we passed gambling online in Tennessee. And there's a group of us that voted against it. And one of the reasons why we don't believe in it, because what it does on the back end of people. But the thing we argued was, if you got to pass a bill, that on the back end of the bill, you have to have the 1-800 number for people to get addicted to your bill. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you guys insisted on the red line thing?
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
But it's good. But you're passing a bill knowing that you need a 1-800 red line, because you're giving people the ability to do something that's going to destroy their lives. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and this is where, the great debate comes in, right? Between conservatives and libertarians, that, how far are we willing to go to try to protect people from themselves?
And that's the big debate we have. Where does government end and personal liberty begins? And that's the nuance of being an elected official, is trying to make sure you have all the freedoms and all the autonomy that's granted to you under the Constitution, making sure that trying to make sure you don't do something that jeopardizes people.
How about that as we wrap up here, Scott? How about that mayor of Nashville, after deciding that he's not running again, making the decision to go ahead and sign the letter and sending it off to the RNC, saying, "Hey, we'd like you guys in 2028." I mean, most of us were incredibly frustrated at how naked the politics were on the part of Nashville, and I know the bill to shrink the council is advancing. That's happening, right?
For efficiency.
Yeah, no, and I've yet to hear. I've heard grumping and grousing and complaining about it. I've yet to hear a valid argument that tells me how it will not make Nashville better for the citizens of the city.
You might want to check your text line real quick here in about 5 minutes.
Well, I just find it nice that Cooper comes around, and maybe he was in this place all along, but he had not decided that he didn't want to run again, because I suppose amongst the Democrats this could be easily vilified. But I just find it interesting that end around was always available to him, and he chose to take it for the 2028 election cycle.
Interesting.
Yeah, and funny that when you
politics,
you strip the politics out of it. Always a good conversation, Scott. Thank you. Scott Sapicki. We'll be back in just a moment, and Jay St Clair coming up in the 2:00 hour. We got a lot of law to talk about. We'll do that right after this on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I'll see you next Thursday. Take care. All right, friends. So LT360 last night, what a great event. Coach Scott was there. Doc Underwood was there. The rest of the crew at LT360. They had some new folks there from LT360. I met Jeff for the first time, and Coach Elizabeth, my coach, of course, was there. I'm going to see her March 1st. I guess that's next Wednesday. Going to sit down, going to get a few things done in terms of LT360, because I'm back on it, baby. I know the lifestyle change that you will experience with LT360 will be dramatic. And I understand, as so many of the folks that went out to the Williamson County Chamber of Commerce last night, it was good to meet each and every one of you. Always good to see good new friends. You understand it too as well, that it's not going on a diet off a diet. It's not really even focused on weight loss. It's not health, sick care so much as it is wellness care. And that involves intake, because intake produces outcomes. That involves, hydration. It involves getting up and getting moving and getting a little exercise in your life. I mean, all of these components are what Coach Scott has put together, and on a holistic level. These things are designed to make you feel better, to make the necessity for pills that often cover up issues less in your life. I mean, it's just all around a wonderful program, and I encourage you to go to LT360.com to find out more. That's LT360.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. You often hear me talk about diversification in the investing process, but how do we diversify? Well, we look for things that move in dissimilar fashion historically. Some of those market areas might be really small companies or really large companies, or very growth-oriented companies or value-oriented companies. One of the things that we find is that when we diversify between these various segments, we can reduce the volatility of the portfolio because they don't move in tandem with each other historically. Now, we can do that in U.S. markets, we can do that in international markets, and in emerging markets. And when we can dampen that volatility, we can help get ourselves a little bit of a better outcome as far as knowing what we might likely have in the future, or how we can take income from our investment portfolio. Now, we also want to add fixed income or bonds to the mix as well. Now, if we know that we need to do this, what's the best way to do it? Well, one of the things that we often teach is this concept of market efficiency. This won the Nobel Prize in economics as well. And it's the idea that if I'm investing in, let's say, small value stocks, if we look at professional managers and their ability to say, hey, should I have this stock or that one, and picking companies or areas of the market, we find that they typically get lower returns than the market does on its own. They just add expense and they can add a lot of volatility. One of the things we want to avoid is anything that can hurt your returns and increase your risk in the investing process. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I just instructed Mr. Executive Producer that he is welcome to leave the camera on during all of the breaks because I want you. I was watching Nashville's Morning News and Dan Mandis and all of the shenanigans that go on there during the commercial advertisements, and I thought, well, why not? I mean, we could leave that on. You can see my shenanigans. You'll see me leave and come back and whatnot. That's Super Talk TV on YouTube, Facebook Live, Twitter, and Twitch. You can also find us on the airwaves, et cetera, et cetera. Lots of reaction to the marijuana and closed primary discussion. I'll get into some of that in just a moment. I got actual mail correspondence right there that I will share with you. Plus, Jay St. Clair will share him with you as it is a First Amendment Freestyle Friday on Thursday on the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Stand by for news.
It's 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. 81 degrees right now. Another summer feeling day in February here in Tennessee. I mean, these are some record temperatures for this month in Nashville, tying 1962's record of 84 degrees that was reached today. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg calling for tougher regulation of the rail industry following the toxic derailment of a Norfolk Southern train in Ohio. Here's Dave Packer.
As the NTSB releases a preliminary report pointing to an overheated wheel bearing playing a role in the train derailment in East Palestine, Ohio, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg visiting the site pointing to rail safety regulation and accountability.
And whether we're going to make it tougher or whether we're going to allow it to continue being watered down.
This after, in a letter to Norfolk Southern CEO, Buttigieg accused the industry of spending millions in courts and congressional lobbying to relax railroad regulations.
Right now in Tennessee, 2 bills have passed the General Assembly that deal with certain drag shows and transgender surgeries.
The bill, commonly referred to as the drag show bill, cleared the full House this morning. It now goes to Governor Lee's desk for his consideration. It restricts any performance that is sexual in nature to age-restricted venues. LGBTQ plus advocates say it puts annual Pride Parade performers at risk, but Republicans say it only affects drag shows that are sexual in nature. Elsewhere at the state capitol today, a bill that bans transgender surgery on kids passed. It goes to the governor's desk for his consideration. The bill bans gender-affirming surgery and treatment on boys who want to be or think they are girls and vice versa. Ken Weaver, WTN News.
And in Kentucky, Channel 4 says that University Heights Academy head basketball coach has been accused of drug trafficking. Melvin Brown was searched and was found with a large amount of money, a gun, and illicit drugs. He's currently being held in McCracken County Jail on federal charges, and Brown will no longer be involved with the basketball team. He was named Region Coach of the Year this season. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
right, so Accurate Mortgage Group wants to alert you. It's a mortgage alert, alert, alert. Accurate Mortgage Group, Mike, Joe, Heino, and the rest of the team want to remind you that while interest rates have creeped up from historic lows of 3-4 years ago, and we get that, we understand that, they're also down from where they were 6 months ago. And with home prices sliding down as a result of some of those interest rates creeping up, what I'm telling you is there's a honey hole for you right now. Plus, add to that the payment reduction program offered by Accurate Mortgage Group. Let's talk about that for a moment. Accurate Mortgage Group offers the payment reduction program that helps buyers enjoy a lower mortgage payment for the first 2 years of the life of the loan. It's a fixed rate mortgage. It's not an adjustable rate mortgage, but it offers you that lower price point, that lower payment point for the first 2 years. It's an incredible incentive for buyers and sellers, because sellers can offer this to make their home buying or the buying of their home more attractive to potential buyers. I mean, it's just a great win-win for everyone involved. Don't forget about the possibility of paying off higher interest credit card debt through Accurate Mortgage Group as well. I'm telling you, I love the fact that these guys are local because it gives you flexibility. If you're the type of person you want to do everything from your house, on your phone, and on email, you can do that. You can sign everything you need to sign. Or if you want to come in and look at somebody in the face, you can do that as well. Accurate Mortgage Group is a division of Acopia LLC, an equal housing lender, NMLS 4664. Online, AccurateMTG.com. That's AccurateMTG.com. Hello, it's Matt Murphy and the Matt Murphy Show 205. Coming up in just a few moments, Jay St. Clair. now, Mr. Smart Guy. Now, Mr. If you're watching on TV, if you're watching on the television, I'm getting this look of confusion and disgust because the one thing that I'm not doing that I ought to do is I'm not eliminating. I drink a calorie-free energy drink during the show. Oftentimes, it's a Monster energy drink. And Coach Elizabeth and Coach Scott over at LT360, I mean, they give me the business about this because they said that I'm supposed to cut it out. And I follow the rules, and Bell and I have this little competition going on about weight loss, and he's whipping my butt right now. But I'm getting there. I just cannot continue to weigh every day. It is driving me mentally insane. Bell claims that, you can do everything right and twice on Sundays, but if you don't stop drinking those energy drinks, then it's not going to work for you. And I got to have something. Otherwise, I'm going to kill people.
Why don't you just open up your face and put some pie in it?
Well, that goes against the entire concept of the bet. I mean, maybe you want me to do that, Bell K, because you want to win the bet. But the whole point is not to open up your face and not to put pie in it, which I'm not doing. And so you can tell me, this is where I just get illogical, because Coach Elizabeth has done this. Bell is doing this. Well, you're not supposed to drink those drinks. And I say, they don't have any calories in them. It doesn't matter. That's how Bell sounds in my head when we have this discussion. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, yes, it does matter. It doesn't have any calories. So I'm not hurting myself from a caloric intake standpoint. And everybody's against me on this. And they're probably right, but I don't care. I don't care. You're right, and I don't care. That said, have I told you the discussion that I had with Coach Elizabeth about a product called Water Joe? So I've only seen this at like one or two MAPCOs in town. Not everyone has them. But it's called Water Joe. It's water with caffeine in it. It's not sparkling. It's not flavored. It's just water. It's a big old thing of water called Water Joe. And I thought, wow, well, this is good because I get some hydration and I get a little caffeine because I'm addicted. I need the caffeine. I do a little cup of coffee. And this would eliminate the need for a Monster energy drink or another energy drink. So I go to Coach Elizabeth. And I said, ooh, Coach Elizabeth, don't shake your head before I finish the story. I said, ooh, Coach Elizabeth, does what? Because you have to drink. I mean, you don't have to, but if you want to be fully hydrated in life, you should be drinking about half of your body weight in ounces of water a day. Right? So for me right now, that's 120 ounces. It's a lot of water. So I thought, oh, this will count toward my water. And I said to Coach Elizabeth, Coach, does this count as my water? And she said, what is it again? I said, it's Water Joe. It's all it is it's just water and they've infused caffeine in it. And she said, no, it doesn't count. No! And I said, well, wait a minute. If I took a caffeine pill, like just one of the, like a no-dose, right? Just a 100 milligrams of caffeine. If I took that pill and then slammed a 30-ounce bottle of water, does that water count? And she said, well, of course. Can you see where I got a little flummoxed, a little frustrated? Well, it reminded me of what I've always said about why I do not believe prostitution should be illegal. Because if I'm a married man, so I'm not talking about me. Let's use Belle as an example. Yeah, oh yeah, don't roll your eyes. You deserve this, Mr. I'm right about the energy drinks. So if Belle goes out tonight and he meets a nice girl and they strike up a conversation and they sit and have a nice beverage and Belle likes her so much that as he gets up from the table getting ready to leave, he decides to give her $200. That's perfectly legal. Now imagine another scenario in which Belle goes out and strikes up a conversation with a girl. And I'm not saying he should do this. I'm just saying work with me here. They have a lovely evening, a lovely conversation, and that evening leads to a hotel room. And they do the horizontal mambo. That's perfectly legal. You just can't do both things on the same night. With that in mind, my personal attorney and very good friend is with us.
Good morning, Americans. It's Friday.
It's Friday. It's not Friday, but it's Friday. Jay is one of my best friends in the world. He's a legal mind, unparalleled. He is a product of the University of Tennessee and also Yale. He's a product of University of Tennessee. Hello, Jay. How are you, my friend?
Hey, Matt, that will always be funny.
It does not stop for me. I hope you're doing well. Everything going good for you in Birmingham?
Man, if I was any better, I would be my Secretary of Homeland Security. I just tweeted out, you hadn't seen it yet. She put up a kissing booth, my German Shepherd, at the doggy daycare.
What?
20 cents a kiss. 20 cents a kiss. I can't wait to see how much money she has when I go pick her up today.
Do you, I'm looking for this as we speak. Do you take her every day?
No, it's only a couple of days a week. I mainly here, I haven't been able to afford it recently, man. If it's going to rain, I take her because she will just sit out in the rain. It doesn't bother her, and then, the dog smell is just unbearable. And so I tend to work it around weather.
Uh-huh. Wait, this is nice, Jay. Oh, this is something else.
Isn't that great?
I have just retweeted. I've retweeted Jay. You need to follow Jay on Twitter, but if you want to see his Secretary of Homeland Security, there she is in a kissing booth.
Oh, I love my doggy daycare. They're so clever. They have that set up out in the lobby for Valentine's Day, and it's just perfect dog-sized, right?
All right, I've got it up on television, Jay. So we've one of these days we're going to get the squirrels pointed in the right direction. People have asked. We've got a photo of you up on TV, but one of these days we're going to hook everything up just right, and we'll get you up on camera so folks can see you. But it's always good to talk with you. Thanks for doing it on a Thursday, friend.
Oh, yeah, no, my pleasure. Can't imagine any place else I'd rather be. And, boy, the hourly rate here can't be beat.
I'll tell you what, there's no doubt. I mean, I get the invoices every month, and I just send them right back. I mean, it's money well spent. And as Jay has all, I don't want to get in front of you because this is your say. What do you say about your legal advice here on the radio?
Well, free legal advice is worth exactly what you pay for it. And I'm often wrong, but never in doubt. I have an answer for everything, man.
Well, if you have a question, always good to get those questions up on the super text line, and I will ask as many as I can see while Jay is with us today. 615-737-9986, 737-WWTN. Jay, without leading you in any direction, I've kind of given my position on what's going on at the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa involving a horrible tragedy. January 15th, a gunshot ring, several gunshots ring out, leading to the death of one person, the incarceration of two individuals involving a couple of basketball players from the University of Alabama. So you've got a lot of sports elements in this, and I think these conversations kind of started on sports radio, but they branched out into our world, about preferential treatment within the police departments and what constitutes an accessory to a crime and what doesn't. And I'm just interested in your analysis of all of this.
Yeah, so it really depends on the facts, right? I mean, the basketball player here did not pull the trigger, man, right? There's only one person pulled the trigger, and that's the person you obviously begin with when you're talking about charging somebody for murder. But there are instances where one person can be liable for the actions of another person. I didn't pull the trigger, but maybe I told someone, hey, Matt, go kill, I won't say Bill. I don't want to be that close.
Please, say Bill.
Go kill Kirby, what's his face?
No, we're not killing Kirby Smart. What are you talking about?
Go kill him. Go kill here, I'll give you $10,000 to kill him. Then, even though you didn't pull the trigger, Matt, you committed murder. Under the law of Alabama, right? This is a state-by-state law. In Alabama, there is no crime of aiding and abetting murder. It doesn't exist. You're guilty of murder. And you're guilty of murder if, with the intent to promote or assist in murder, and this is going to be the key word here, is intent, you aid or abet another person. And so what happened here is somebody, a buddy of this basketball player, called him and said, hey, bring me my gun. It's in your car. And he brought him his gun at 2 o'clock in the morning down in downtown Tuscaloosa. They think kind of strip like they do up in Knoxville. And then that gun ended up being used as a murder weapon. So the question is that basketball player liable for bringing a gun to someone who actually then gave it to someone else who then killed somebody with it? That's the question. And it all turns on what was in his mind, man. And I won't give you an example. Suppose that you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey, Jay, I left my gun in the backseat of your car, and I'm down Lower Broad. Would you please bring that gun down here to me?
Right.
That's a pretty, I can actually see that happening.
Mm-hmm.
But then suppose I say, well, Matt, why do you want it? And you say, I think it's time for me to get rid of that gun. I was telling somebody down here about it, and he said he was willing to give me $500 for it, so I'm going to sell it. Please bring it down here. I'm going to sell it. And I say, great, man, congratulations. And I bring it down there to you, and you take the gun, you turn around and shoot and kill somebody. Have I committed murder? No.
No.
I had no reason to believe you were going to kill somebody. I thought, in my mind, I honestly believed that you were going to sell the gun. Same facts, slightly different, changed it just a little bit. You call me, same thing, 2 o'clock in the morning, you're down there at Lower Broad. You always hang out down there on weekends.
Well, I might meet Dolly, Jay. I might see Dolly. You never know.
You don't ever give up. Just don't ever give up. Hey, Jay, I left my gun in the backseat of your car. Would you bring it to me? Well, I'd be happy to, man. Why do you need it at 2 o'clock in the morning? Because I'm fixing to kill this guy. He needs it. He's got it coming. All right? Well, I'll be right there. And I bring it to you, and you shoot and kill the guy. I, Jay St. Clair, have committed murder under the laws of Alabama. because I knowingly brought you a gun, knowing that you were going to kill somebody with it. And I was aiding you in doing that. And so we've now kind of defined the parameters, man. I put up kind of clear cases on one side or the other. So the whole question here turns on, well, this guy gets a call 2 o'clock in the morning, bring me my gun, and he does. Well, did he? See, I almost made a mistake. Well, said, should he have known that this was going to lead to murder? That's not the question, man. The question is, did he know, or did he believe that this was going to be the outcome? And was he doing it to help this person kill somebody else? And I got to be honest with you, Matt, and, it'd take 30 minutes to get into all the facts about it, and I don't want to take up too much of your listeners' time, but I've looked at it closely. And they have the text messages, and there's a lot of detail that we can get into if you want to. But here's my bottom line on it, Matt. I think that reasonable minds could disagree about this. And that's a phrase you don't hear much anymore. Our nation's gotten so polarized that you either got to be one or the other. Well, I think reasonable people could look at these facts and come to different conclusions. And the one thing that surprises me, and this is my original thought, I was talking to a judge about this. And I'm not going to say who the judge was, but you probably do. And out of that conversation, I got the idea, well, why doesn't the DA just present this to the grand jury and let the grand jury decide? But that's not what's happened, man. And I got to be honest with you, I think that's part of the reason that some people are saying, well, this guy's getting preferential treatment because he's a star. He's not just on the basketball team. He's a star. I guess they're number one. I don't know if they're still number one or not, but a highly rated Alabama basketball team.
Would you say, well, no, absolutely, number 2 in the country. Would you say, and I think this is possibly why the story is a little bit more polarized than it normally would be. I think naturally we would let the justice system play out, but because he's a star player, because it's in Tuscaloosa, because there have been suggestions of that preferential treatment or whatnot, and there have been suggestions or out-and-out statements about what people think the head coach should and should not have done. The question so would you say that under the law, and I know that you're going to tell me it's not as simple as black and white. So an absence of the knowledge. I mean, the example, and this is why you've been my friend a long time. You've taught me a lot about the law, Jay, because my hypothetical last night was a buddy of mine and I go hunting. We go on a weekend hunting trip, and I drop him off at his house at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then he calls me at midnight and says, Matt, I left my hunting rifle in your truck. I want my hunting rifle. And I can tell that he's a little slurry. Maybe he's been drinking. Right. And I was like, you want your hunting rifle? Yeah, I want my hunting rifle. Well, okay. And for whatever reason, I don't ask. And I go and I get him my hunting rifle. Well, before I get out of the driveway, he has shot and killed his wife. Am I responsible in any way for that murder? And I have to feel like that the absence of any foreknowledge on my part prevents me from being charged in that.
I agree with that conclusion. Absolutely. I'm with you. And the key thing you said in that, the absence of any foreknowledge. Now, let me take those same facts. And this is how fact-specific the law is. Your same hypothetical, Matt, all the same facts, one difference. A week earlier, you were having a conversation with that friend, and he said, I'm at my wit's end. My marriage is awful. It's terrible. I got to be honest with you, Matt. I'm thinking about killing my wife.
Even a week earlier.
A week earlier.
Yeah.
He had told you that a week earlier, and then that happens. Does that change the outcome? I think to some people it does.
And so
that's how fact-specific these things are.
Right. And so in this case, there was a specific text message, and that I guess there's an indication that Mr. Miller would have had an understanding about why the person was asking for the gun. I mean, that's the suggestion.
I don't remember the exact words. It is kind of street talk that I've.
Yeah, I need my joint.
Anyway.
I think it was that. I think he used the
He
word joint.
didn't call it joint. He called it joint, which I'd said, I'm all out of dope, buddy. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
We come from a similar era. Because why are you talking about dope?
But he also said some people are acting crazy, some street term that I wasn't familiar with. But he said something that I think could have led Mr. Miller. Could have. Big difference between could have and did or should have. It isn't could have or should have. It's did it. Did it lead him to believe the reason he wanted this gun was to kill somebody? Man, he might have thought the reason he wanted this gun was self-defense.
Right, protect himself. Sure.
Yeah, he made us, man, there's some crazy people down here, man. Would you bring me my gun? I'm afraid there's crazy people down here, man. Please bring me my gun. Well, now, in my mind, it turns on what I know about you. Do I think you are a violence-prone person?
Right.
Or I do not believe Matt Murphy ever in life would intentionally set out to kill somebody. I know you well enough to know that. And that's why if you called me at 1 o'clock in the morning from Lower Broad and said, bring me my gun, I would bring you your gun.
Well,
it would never cross my mind. I would never cross my mind you were going to kill somebody.
Jay, we've got to go to a break, but let me tell you before we do, if I ever call you at 1 o'clock in the morning and tell you to bring me my gun on Lower Broad, do not under any circumstances bring me my gun. Don't. You bring me an automobile and you take me home because I need to go. All right, Jay St. Clair's our guest. We're going to talk about a few other legal matters coming up in a moment. It's 2:25 on Super Talk.
3 people dead in Florida as a result to gun violence, including a 9-year-old girl and a news reporter, plus drugs in Tennessee. That and more 2:30 Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I was following a little bit of that story yesterday afternoon, Mac. I'm certain that you had it as you were here covering the news cycle, and just an awful. I mean, anytime there's a murder, anytime there's violence on the streets, that's awful. But the concept of a reporter going out to try to draw attention to the tragedy, they themselves become a part of the tragedy. That's just gut-wrenching. All right, 615-737-9986. Jay St. Clair is with us, just kind of putting a capper on this story out of Tuscaloosa, and we'll move on to a couple of other things right after the news. So, Jay, the question came up on the super text line, how do you prove that there was a lack of foreknowledge or that there was foreknowledge? And, I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road in your business, right, is that you have to talk to a jury and convince them beyond a reasonable doubt.
No, that's exactly right. The prosecution has to prove it. See, he doesn't have to disprove it. You can't prove a negative. And that's why I'm sure the main reason the prosecution here decided not to take the case. They said, we can't prove it. We have circumstantial evidence. I mean, like, if anybody calls me at 2 o'clock in the morning and says, hey, bring me my gun, there might be some trouble down here, any reasonable person could believe, well, this could turn ugly. But that's not saying he knew they wanted the gun to commit murder. Mm-hmm. That's the whole point, is you can't prove it. Well, it may be circumstantial evidence, but, it's hard to prove. That's why they didn't prosecute the guy.
All right, and so
now,
and I've gotten several of these, and I'm going to ask because the listeners want to know your thought on it. But that's the legal side of it, right?
Right.
And a lot of people are wondering why he still there's been no punishment to be meted out by the basketball team.
That's right. Totally different thing. Completely, totally different. Fair question. Here's what I would say about that. I don't know that there hasn't been. I don't think any of us know. I don't think the coach has come out and said he's not suffered any consequences at all. He's not been suspended from play. We know that, Matt. But we don't know. There's other ways that players can be punished. I don't know. Maybe he's on a curfew right now. He may have to run stadium steps for the rest of his life. We don't know.
Right.
But we know he's not been suspended.
Could you, in the civil world, let me play one quick hypothetical, and we got to go to the news.
Sure.
Well, no, it's unfair to ask you this question before we go to news. So we're gonna go to news. Jay St. Clair back after this. When we come back, I'm gonna ask him if there would be a civil suit if they kicked him off the team. If you're opening yourself up to some sort of litigation in that regard. It is 2:32 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
32 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, it is 80 degrees in Middle Tennessee and pretty sunny as well. It hit a record high for this month in Nashville, 84 degrees earlier today. That ties the record that was set in 1962. Weather coming up in just a few minutes. 3 people killed in Florida, including a Spectrum News reporter and a 9-year-old girl, in a series of shootings in the Orlando area yesterday. Dylan Lyons has been identified as the journalist killed. The Orange County Sheriff has confirmed the 19-year-old suspect was known to police. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre at the start of her White House briefing today criticizing Republican inaction on gun control in Florida.
Republican state officials in Florida are currently leading an effort to pass a permitless concealed carry law, which would eliminate the need to get a license to carry a concealed weapon. This is the opposite of common sense gun safety, and the people of Florida, who have paid a steep price for state and congressional inaction on guns, from Parkland to Pulse nightclub to Pine Hills, deserve better.
And here in Tennessee with a crime story, Fox 17 says that an Asheville woman, 21-year-old Hannah Forkham, was arrested today after being caught with 25 grams of fentanyl, 27 grams of meth laced with fentanyl, and 7 grams of black tar heroin. Forkham has also been accused of being responsible for a woman overdosing and dying after selling her some of those deadly drugs. Forkham is facing a second-degree murder charge and was also found with a handgun in her room. And staying here in the volunteer state, changes could be made to the law in Tennessee that holds back third graders 1 year based on poor state rating test scores. House Education Administration Committee Chair Mark White tells WTN's Nashville Morning News the goal is to get more parents involved before their kid gets to third grade, so they're meeting the standard.
No one wants to hold an 8-year-old back in third grade. I don't think anybody would agree with that. But we cannot continue to kick this can down the road to where we keep letting young people go on to the 4th and 5th grade where they don't have the adequate reading skills, where school is a challenge, is not fun.
The law is in effect after school this year. Bills to change it will start being debated on March 7th. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey folks, Matt Murphy here for the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Let me tell you something. There are a lot of different ways to get pain relief. You could pop pills, but is that any way to live? You're constantly feeling fuzzy or whatever. You could consider surgery, but that always should be a last resort. Have you thought about chiropractic care? Get with the best. Get with the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. They're in Franklin. They're located anywhere within the sound of my voice. You can get there, and they want to talk with you. And right now, for $23 in 2023, your full examination, your initial consultation is $23. That's it. It's an amazing value. Let's talk about what that entails. You will schedule an appointment. When you make the call, I'll give you the number and MO. You will go in. And you can bring, if you have scans and whatnot that you've had previously, you're welcome to bring all of those in, but that doesn't matter because they have x-ray scanning technology right there on site. So they're going to get with it. They're going to scan you. They're going to x-ray you. They're going to look at the problem points that you identify as a new patient, and then they can diagnose a prescription for success that involves maybe decompression therapy or some of the other advanced therapies that they have at the Dr. Gill Center to reduce inflammation in the body, reduce pain, swelling, and accelerate healing. That's what it's all about, $23. Here's the number. Call and schedule the appointment today. 882-4838. 615-882-4838 with the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. This is what happens. This is why I run late all the time at the bottom of the hour, because I was about to set something up with Jay St. Clair, and now I did 4 other things during the news break, and now I've completely forgotten what I was about to set up. And I apologize. I've lost it. I am certain that as soon as we start talking about something else, I'll regain it again. I'm certain of that. 615-737-9986. If you have thoughts or questions from a legal perspective, I've got a couple of those, Jay. Real quick, one question of mine, however. How important, let me not even ask how important. Why are we told that the secrecy involved in grand jury proceedings is so important?
Well, I just read it to you. This is from a case. If grand jury proceedings were made public, man, many prospective witnesses wouldn't want to testify because they know that who they're going to testify against is going to know their testimony, right? So a witness would be afraid to testify. They don't want it, and they may not testify fully and truthfully. It's kind of like the attorney-client privilege, man. You and I have had attorney-client privilege conversation.
Mm-hmm.
The point is we can speak freely and openly and say anything we want to, and never fear it being repeated. That's what they want in a grand jury. They want innuendo, they want rumor, they want gossip, they want dreams. Stuff comes in, man, that's not admissible in court. And so it's to encourage that free, open, and honest exchange. But then the flip side of it is you keep it secret because reputations are at the stake. And it is rumor and gossip and innuendo, and it's not admissible evidence. And so it's not fair to an innocent person to let all that stuff out in public. What's the guy's name? I don't remember, but you do, and it's just great. He got drugged through the mud. He wins his court case, and then he gets up in front of the steps of the courthouse and says, "Now tell me what office I go to get my reputation."
Ray Donovan.
Is to prevent that from happening.
So what do you make of over in Georgia, and it's not something that we've covered very much of, because frankly it doesn't interest me that much. And it's a grand jury that has been seated to decide if any laws were broken in the aftermath of the 2020 election cycle. And this,
I think this is effort 132 to charge Trump with a crime.
Right. I mean, that's what it feels like. Right? I mean, it just feels like yet another try at cracking that nut and getting him on trial for something. And you've got a grand jury that's been meeting, and this Fulton County special grand jury forewoman, a woman by the name of Emily Kors, is making the rounds on political talk shows. And I don't know that she's violating any rules of the grand jury, but boy, oh boy, she's coming close. And there are some that are suggesting that she's like imperiling the process altogether.
Well, I'll read to you what the law says in Georgia. The Georgia law on secrecy of grand juries, it's a little odd, Matt. It's different than Alabama and probably Tennessee, too. But they are prohibited, members of the grand jury are prohibited from disclosing the deliberations of the grand jury, not the evidence that they get. By law, they can talk about the evidence, but they can't talk about the deliberations.
Mm-hmm.
They can't, which means I think she's violated that. Because she says, we recommended 12 indictments be issued. She stopped and didn't say against whom. But that is disclosing deliberations, man. And normally, I would say the majority rule, man, is that they can't disclose anything that happens in the grand jury. They can't disclose who the witnesses were or what they testified to. That's not the law in Georgia. But that's not what she's talking about. She's talking about their deliberations, and that, in my judgment, is against the law. And I have read Olson versus State, 302 Georgia 288, Georgia 2017. So if anybody doubts my knowledge about this subject, I would invite them to give their interpretation of that case. I said that, man, just so you're showing out.
You're showing out in front of company. That's what you're doing.
Well, I charge by the hour.
I love it. That's great. I don't know what the MO, the modus operandi of this woman is. But I mean, I have serious doubts whether anybody's going to go down that trail, though, because I mean, maybe someone who would be the party that would initiate. Let me ask it a different way. What's the next step? If I believe she's violated the law, the judge holds her in contempt?
Well, yeah. I mean, if she violated, apparently the judge gave her some instructions about what she could do and what she couldn't. And if she violated the rules, if I were the judge, yeah, I'd call her in and we'd have a serious talk. But at this point, really, he's the only person. Again, we talk so much. To have a legal remedy, Matt, you have to have an injury, right? And so what happens is somebody's got to get charged as a consequence of what this did. And then maybe that person can say something about it. Or, it may affect the selection of the jury pool. That, the jury pool's been tainted because she's been out here blabbing about what happened in front of the grand jury, which shouldn't have happened.
All right, so
I'll guarantee you this. I bet you it's clean kill, Matt. They will not indict Donald Trump.
No.
For finagling with the 2020 election in Georgia.
No, they might get a couple of process crimes or
that's right.
Misremembrances and whatnot. But I would agree with you wholeheartedly there. I was reminded by the astute listening audience. My mind goes, but they help me. They keep me on track. So back to the Alabama deal. So if the authorities determine that no charges would be filed against Brandon Miller, that they do not believe that they have sufficient evidence to charge him with anything. Right. Let's say, hypothetically, that the Alabama basketball team kicks him off the team. I mean, just you're done. Well, that to me, and I could be wrong, Jay, but would I not be opening myself up if I'm the University of Alabama for a potential civil lawsuit? Because you're hurting my potential future livelihood. And I've not been charged with any crime. Could the player sue the university for kicking him off the team, although the authorities determined he didn't do anything wrong?
Right. Yeah. So Matt knows this. All your listeners don't, and so we might as well all get to know each other. Matt just asked me, could a player sue the university?
I asked it a specific way. Yes.
Could the player sue the university? And my answer to that is always this. Matt, it takes two things to file a lawsuit. $400 and a crayon. It takes a crayon to write out the lawsuit. It costs $400 to file it. So the answer to your question is yes. That player could file a lawsuit.
I love you so much.
Well, that's the truthful, honest.
Well, you're right. I mean, no, you're right. I get it. And all right,
I've given you that answer about 107 times.
I listen every time. I just do this for the enjoyment of the audience. That's
right. Because what you're really asking, right? What you're really asking is, if he files a lawsuit, will he win? This is how I advise my client. Well, if he files a lawsuit, Jay, is he going to win?
Yeah.
And you know how I answer that?
How's that?
Well, I don't know. Tell me who's on the jury. Right. You're not going to predict the outcome of this lawsuit, are you, Jay? And that's when I say this. Matt, silly me, I thought O.J. did it.
Yeah, that's weird that you thought that, but I get it. I understand that. All right, this from JB real quick before I get to a few questions. I've decided not to view the radio show. I have preconceived ideas about what all y'all look like, and I don't want to be disappointed. This gets better. I'll just keep picturing Jay St Clair as George Lindsay. And Matt looks like my brother-in-law who went to UGA. My brother-in-law is such good people, I give Georgia folks the benefit of the doubt. He'd be welcome in Blount County anytime.
Well, that's funny, and it hurts my feelings a little bit about George Lindsay. I wish you had said, when it was Sheriff Taylor or Matlock.
Matlock, that's what.
Matlock. I want you to, when you think of me, I want you to think of Matlock. And this is funny because, Matt, the case I had that went to the Supreme Court, they're making a movie out of it. We've been talking about this for years.
Are they doing that? Are they going forward?
They keep saying, we'll see. And so for years the question is going to be, well, Jay, who do you want to play you? And I said, well, it'll probably be Ned Beatty.
Well,
he was the guy that got violated.
I remember he was Otis in the Superman movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But I tell you, here's the person I want you to think of when you think about me. Oh, shit. What's the guy's name? He was Al Gore's roommate in college. And then
Tommy Lee Jones.
That's it. Tommy Lee Jones. Perfect. Somebody suggested that to me, and I said, that's perfect.
Yeah,
So
that's pretty good. It's pretty good. He'd have to dye his hair, though, Jay.
I spent a lot of money to keep my hair this color, man. I don't want to hear anything about
that. Somebody wants to know what color crayon. That's pretty funny.
Orange.
You get any color you want. Dadgummit, I've lost it now. I almost had one. We're gonna have to wait till next time. And I apologize to the person I've lost it to. But there's so many questions coming in. This person had. I won't be able to find it in time. Jay, you know how much I appreciate your wisdom, your expertise when it comes to legal matters, but I appreciate even more your friendship. I appreciate the fact, most know that I'm taking tomorrow off on business. I'm taking next Friday off on pleasure, and you're part of that pleasure, so I look forward to that.
Hey, I look forward to seeing you somewhere next weekend, man.
All right. We'll talk again. Take care, Jay.
See you, buddy.
There's Jay St. Clair. Great hour. Love talking with him. And I apologize to those questions I didn't get to. I lost them. And Dan Mandis has yet to tell me how to figure out this note system befuddles me, but there's apparently a way for me to flag them, and I don't know. It's 2:51 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The issue that I did not get to, that I will try to get to if I'm not cut off, is East Palestine. Next on Super Talk.
A plane crash takes the lives of 5 people in Ohio. An Amber Alert that is still active here in Tennessee, and the special counsel subpoenas some of Donald Trump's kids. That and more coming up 3 o'clock.
There's Mac Morey with the news coming up in about 2 minutes or so. The Drive with Brian Wilson right after that, getting you home in the right fashion until 7 o'clock tonight. It's a part of live and local information-fueled and opinion-driven news talk radio for the masses on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. You excited about getting that news tease in? I don't let you get that news tease in, Mac Morey,
No,
at the
you
end of the
don't.
show. Also, if you want to file a grievance with the fact that we did not have Friday Mac Attack on Thursday because I'm out tomorrow, file it with my attorney. His name is Jay St. Clair.
Well, I do have a crown, but I don't have $400, so
Jay's also famous on my show over the years for saying, "Man, you can sue a ham sandwich." I mean, you can if you want, you can sue a ham sandwich. Just
he's the man.
Have at it. I do want to speak real quick with Megan, who's been holding for over an hour, and I appreciate that tenacity and patience, and I want to reward it. Megan, thank you for your time. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I got about a minute, but I'm going to give it all to you, Megan. Go right ahead.
All right. I was calling about the schools. I actually have a third grader that is on the verge of being held back because of his reading. I found out from a student, the teacher conference, that they don't even have books to follow along in the classroom.
Hey,
and
here's what I'm going to do, Megan. Here's what I'm going to do, because this is unfair to you. I'm going to put you on hold. I'm going to give you my email, and I want you to hit me up on email, and I want to communicate that way, and maybe we can reconnect coming up next week because I'm off tomorrow, because this would be totally unfair of me to try to get you to get it out in the next 20 seconds. And I don't want to do that because you held too long. So you hang in there. Brian Wilson in the Drive coming up next. I'm gone tomorrow. I'm at a seminar, a symposium, a class, if you will. I'll tell you all about it on Monday. Until then, so long.
Three o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Right now, 82 degrees. Summer-like temps been all week here in February in the middle Tennessee area. Going to end here later on this week. Some possible showers to accompany that tomorrow. But for now, hey, 81 degrees right now in Nashville. Weather traffic coming up next, just a few minutes. And as the cleanup continues in East Palestine, Ohio, after the toxic derailment, a plane crash takes the lives of 5 people working for a company involved in the cleanup of another hazardous site in Ohio. Dave Packer.
The twin-engine plane crashing in poor weather shortly after taking off from Little Rock, Arkansas Wednesday. It was heading for Ohio, carrying 5 employees of CTEH, a company that's providing support for a metal plant explosion outside of Cleveland earlier this week. All aboard died. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg while visiting the derailment site in East Palestine, Ohio.
I met with some of their personnel earlier today who are mourning the loss of their friends and colleagues, some of whom were involved in this response as they were on their way to another one.
The FAA and NTSB will investigate.
Amber Alert. Authorities say be on the lookout for a white 1999 model Dodge Caravan. They believe a missing 16-year-old girl from Knoxville is traveling in with an 18-year-old convicted felon. The van may have front bumper damage, just has some rust on the roof. If you see this van or Holly, call 1800-TBI. And over to the nation's capital, sources confirm that subpoenas have been handed down to Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner, in the special counsel January 6th investigation. Justin Finch brings us some details.
Those new subpoenas are from special counsel Jack Smith, who's now probing the events surrounding January 6th and alleged efforts of former President Trump and others to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner, served in the Trump White House and complied with past subpoenas from the January 6th House Select Committee. Trump told the committee she agreed with then Attorney General William Barr that there was no widespread evidence of fraud uncovered in the 2020 election.
And some crime here in the Volunteer State. A teenage girl now facing charges after being connected to a prank call to Robertson High School. She allegedly falsely threatened the school. The 15-year-old girl who's a student at the high school was charged with threats of massive violence on school property and school-related activity with misuse of a 911 and false report. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.